holographic display flickered with 1,000 alien faces as instructor Zixtal adjusted his fourth set of compound eyes, peering down at the newest batch of cadets. His mandibles clicked in barely concealed disdain as he reached the human section of the orientation ceremony. And here we have our special participants, he drawled, antennae twitching. The Deathworlders from Sol 3, or as they insist on calling it, Earth. Chen Wei maintained perfect parade rest, fighting back an eye roll that would have made her drill sergeant back home proud. Next to her, the other human cadets stood equally still, though she could sense their shared amusement at being labeled special. Again. For those unfamiliar with Deathworld classifications, Zixtal continued, his voice dripping with what he probably thought was educational enthusiasm. These cadets come from a planet with crushing gravity, extreme temperature variations, and toxic levels of oxygen. Somehow, they've managed to evolve sapience despite these challenging conditions. The assembled alien cadets murmured among themselves, their various appendages gesturing in what Chen recognized as their species equivalent of pointing and whispering. She'd seen it all before during the admission trials, right before she'd broken every physical assessment record in the Academy's history. However, Zixtal raised all four of his primary limbs for emphasis. The annual war games are not merely a test of brute strength or primitive survival instincts. They require sophistication, strategic thinking, and most importantly, an understanding of civilized combat protocols. Chen bit the inside of her cheek to keep from laughing. Civilized combat protocols. Right. Because nothing said civilized like the time humanity had to explain to the Galactic Council why boxing wasn't actually a form of ritual cannibalism. The massive amphitheater's environmental controls pumped out another blast of what the Academy considered standard atmosphere, a mix that felt like trying to breathe through a wet blanket to human lungs. Chen took another deliberately deep breath, watching with satisfaction as nearby alien cadets flinched at the sight of a Deathworlder casually handling what they considered near-toxic levels of oxygen. Remember, Zixtal concluded, his tone suggesting he was bestowing great wisdom. These games have stood for 3,000 cycles as the galaxy's premier test of military excellence. No team has ever completed the challenges in less than 6 hours. We expect all participants to uphold the proud traditions of tactical warfare that have kept peace among the civilized species. Chen exchanged a quick glance with her fellow human cadets. They'd spent the last 6 months studying those proud traditions, and more importantly, studying their countless exploitable loopholes. After all, humanity hadn't survived on Earth by following rulebooks written for worlds where the weather didn't try to kill you on a daily basis. The war games were about to get a crash course in Deathworlder innovation. Whether they were ready for it or not, the briefing room buzzed with an orchestra of alien sounds as representatives from 23 species arranged themselves according to atmosphere requirements. The Floraxians, looking like sentient crystal trees, clustered near the UV lamps. The gelatinous Mraxi wobbled in their containment spheres, leaving trails of bioluminescent slime. In the high-pressure corner, the crab-like Cor X clicked their battle claws impatiently. "Look at them sizing us up," Maria Rodriguez whispered to Chen, her scarred hands adjusting the environmental suit's settings. "You'd think they'd never seen a mammal before." Technically, Cadet Rodriguez Raj Patel chimed in, his dark eyes gleaming with mischief. "They're trying to figure out how we're standing upright in what they consider bone-crushing gravity." He paused to wave cheerfully at a group of hovering Zareks, who promptly lost altitude in surprise. Dmitry Kovalov, the final member of their squad, looked up from his datapad with a snort. "My favorite is still the official complaint about our endurance stats being mathematically impossible." The room's holoprojector flickered to life, displaying the War Games rulebook, all 12,000 pages of it. Chen had memorized every word, especially the parts that didn't explicitly say no. Each team announced the Korox Games Master, their translator struggling with the clicks, will be deployed to separate sectors of the combat sphere. Your objective is to capture the central command node while defending your own. Traditional victory requires eliminating 90% of opposing forces. A Floraxian representative raised a crystalline appendage. Query about the human team: how will they manage without natural armor or redundant organs? Or proper environmental shielding, added a Maraxi, their sphere pulsing smugly. or basic gravitational assistance chittered a ZRX. Rodriguez cracked her knuckles, the sound making nearby aliens flinch. That's cute. They think we need help with gravity. Teams have 6 hours to achieve victory, continued the game's master, pointedly ignoring the interruptions. Weapons are set to simulation mode. Death results in elimination. Traditional tactics and proper combat protocols must be. Question. Chen raised her hand, expression innocent. The rules say traditional tactics must be employed, but whose traditions? Because Earth has some fascinating military history. The aliens' collective silence was deafening. Somewhere in the back, a Maraxi's containment sphere developed a nervous crack. Human traditions are not applicable, the game's master managed, all 6 eyes blinking rapidly. Of course not, Kovalov agreed pleasantly, while Patel quietly added another loophole to their strategy list. They'd spent months preparing for this, studying every species' weaknesses, limitations, and most importantly, their assumptions about humans. As they headed to their deployment zone, Chen caught snippets of alien conversation. Poor primitives won't last 10 minutes. Should we tell them about the atmospheric variations? Chen smiled. Let them talk. They'd learn soon enough why humans had not only survived but thrived on a planet that would kill most species in seconds. The war games were about to get a lesson in Deathworlder ingenuity, and their instructors wouldn't know what hit them. Remember Sergeant Lee's survival course? Chen asked, spreading the holographic map across their prep room table. The other cadets groaned in unison. 3 weeks in the Himalayas with nothing but a paperclip, and Spite, Rodriguez said, grinning. Good times. That's exactly why we're going to win this, Patel said, highlighting key points on the map. While they were learning proper protocols, we were learning to improvise. Kovalov pulled up the environmental readings. They've programmed the combat sphere with 17 different atmospheric zones, probably expecting us to get trapped in the high-pressure sections. Chen's mind flashed back to their Earth training. Sergeant Lee standing in the snow, his voice cutting through the blizzard. You think the enemy's going to give you perfect conditions? You think they'll play fair? The universe doesn't care about fair. It cares about who survives. They've labeled us as strategic threats, Patel noted, pulling up their classification file. But look at the threat assessment. They think we're dangerous because of our strength and aggression. Not one mention of adaptability. Rodriguez laughed. They really believe we're just dumb brutes who got lucky with evolution. Have they even read Earth's military history? Better they don't, Chen said, zooming in on the central command node. The Kurarks expect us to charge straight in. The Floraxians think we'll hide in the low-gravity zones. The Emerarxi have probably calculated every possible traditional approach. So we do what humans do best, Kovalev said, eyes gleaming. We change the rules. Outside their prep room, the alien teams were running combat simulations based on thousands of years of galactic warfare. None of their scenarios included the possibility of a species that had learned to fight in everything from underwater caves to mountain peaks, from Arctic tundra to burning deserts. They think they're prepared for Deathworlders, Chen said, finalizing their plan. But they're prepared for the Deathworlders they imagine we are, not the ones we actually are. As the deployment countdown began, Chen remembered another thing Sergeant Lee used to say: the most dangerous weapon isn't the one in your hands, it's the one in your head. Time to show the galaxy exactly why humans had earned their reputation. And the annual war games commence in 3, 2, 1. The moment the force fields dropped, chaos erupted, but not where anyone expected it. The humans. They're going backwards, the commentator's translator squealed in confusion. They're retreating from their command node. In the observation deck, Instructor Zixtal's mandibles clattered in disbelief. Impossible. No species abandons their defensive position. It's suicide. But Chen's team wasn't retreating. They were running full sprint through what the arena designated as a level 9 pressure zone, their environmental suits creaking under the strain. To the aliens watching, it looked like madness. To anyone familiar with deep-sea training on Earth, it was just another Tuesday. Rodriguez, now Chen commanded. Rodriguez pulled out their modified environmental controllers, technically within regulations, if you read the fine print about personal equipment adjustments. With a few quick taps, they vented their suit atmosphere in a controlled burst. The result was spectacular. 3 top-ranked Floraxian teams, who had been setting up their traditional crystal fortress formations, suddenly found themselves in a rapidly expanding cloud of oxygen-rich atmosphere. Their crystalline forms began resonating at frequencies their combat systems couldn't handle. Did they just weaponize their breathing air? A Marexi commentator wobbled in shock. 15 eliminations in the first minute, the announcers screeched. The Floraxians they're out. This violates every standard combat protocol. But Chen's team was already moving. Kovalev had reprogrammed their gravity compensators to create localized fluctuations perfectly legal, since the rules only specified maintaining stable personal gravity control. The ZRX teams, confident in their aerial superiority, never saw it coming. One moment they were executing textbook high-altitude maneuvers. The next, they were caught in artificial gravity wells that sent them spiraling into each other. They can't. The commentator was losing coherence. The humans are using gravitational warfare. In 3-dimensional space. Patel, meanwhile, had reached the Karak's defensive line. The crab-like warriors raised their shields, expecting a frontal assault. Instead, Patel threw down a handful of small objects. Are those ball bearings? Instructor Zextal squinted. The Kararx, with their perfectly evolved combat legs, suddenly found themselves sliding uncontrollably. Their sophisticated battle formations dissolved into a comedy of flailing limbs and clicking curses. 3 minutes into the games, the main announcer declared, voice trembling, and we've lost 37% of the competitors. The humans have eliminated 3 of the top-ranked teams without firing a single traditional shot. In the command center, officials frantically reviewed the rule books. Everything the humans had done was technically legal. Unconventional, unprecedented, and utterly terrifying, but legal. They're not even using standard tactics, a Marexi observer protested. Where's the proper formation? The respect for traditional battle lines? Chen's voice crackled over the general comm. Yeah, about those traditions? On Earth, we have a saying, tradition is just peer pressure from dead people. The remaining alien teams watched in horror as the human squad regrouped, their environmental suits covered in crystalline dust and artificial gravity distortion fields rippling around them. They weren't even breathing hard. The games had barely begun. The remaining alien teams had fallen back to defensive positions, frantically trying to predict the humans' next move. Their tactical displays showed nothing but contradictory data. The human life signs seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. They're in the walls, a Marexi commander transmitted, their gelatinous form quivering. How are they in the walls? They weren't, of course. But Chen's team had learned that fear was as effective as any weapon. They'd synchronized their suit signatures to match the arena's background radiation, a trick learned from hunting in Earth's deep caves. Did you know, Rodriguez's voice echoed through all channels, that Earth spiders can hold their breath for hours, just sitting in the dark, waiting. The ZRX teams immediately shifted their sensors to scan the ceiling, exactly as planned. Interesting fact about Earth oceans, Patel added casually. There's always something bigger in the deeper dark. The Marexi formations tightened nervously, their bioluminescence flickering. Kovalev had reprogrammed their communication systems to bounce off the arena's walls, making it impossible to pinpoint their location. To the aliens, it seemed like the humans were omnipresent, their voices coming from everywhere at once. Hey Chen, Rodriguez called out, voice echoing. Remember that training exercise in the Australian outback? The one where everything was venomous. Everything on their planet is venomous, a Corex commander chittered nervously. Chen smiled as she watched the alien team's formations becoming increasingly erratic. They were so focused on looking for hidden threats that they'd completely lost strategic coherence. You know what's fascinating about Earth weather, Patel broadcast? Sometimes the air itself tries to kill you. We call them tornadoes. The humans had spent months studying each species' cultural fears and biological limitations. The Marexi feared sudden pressure changes. The ZRX were terrified of orbital disturbances. The CRX couldn't handle the concept of unpredictable terrain. Earth had trained humans to handle all of these and worse. They're using psychological warfare, an official protested. This isn't a proper military engagement. Actually, Chen responded, her voice seemingly coming from within the official's own booth. Earth military history suggests this is exactly proper military engagement. We just had better teachers than most. Their teachers had been Earth's countless environments, each demanding different survival strategies. Mountains that could kill with thin air and cold. Deserts that could bake or freeze. Oceans that could crush or drown. Forests where a single misplaced step meant death. Every environment they'd simulated in the arena was child's play compared to an average day on Earth. Ready for Phase 2? Chen asked her team. The gravity bomb? Rodriguez grinned. They're going to hate this. The central command node loomed before them, its defenses bristling with the remaining alien teams. Chen surveyed the scene through her helmet's display and smiled. Time for some creative repurposing, she said, detaching her suit's atmospheric processor. Rodriguez? Already on it. Rodriguez had disassembled her gravity compensator, rewiring it to the processor. The combination shouldn't have worked, at least according to galactic engineering principles. But Earth engineers had long since learned that shouldn't was just another word for try harder. They've sealed all approaches, Kovalev reported, watching the aliens reorganize their defenses. Triple-layered barriers, automated defense systems, the works. Perfect, Chen said. Patel? Patel had already started climbing the wall. Straight up, in what the arena classified as double standard gravity. The observers' tracking systems began glitching, unable to process what they were seeing. Impossible. Echoed through the command center. Their bone density can't support that kind of strain. Fun fact about human bones, Patel broadcast as he reached the ceiling. They get stronger under stress. We call it Wolff's Law. The aliens were so focused on Patel's gravity-defying climb that they missed Rodriguez and Kovalev's modified device sliding across the floor. When it activated, the resulting gravitational pulse sent the carefully layered defenses crashing into each other. Chen sprinted through the chaos, her muscles burning in what most species would consider lethal exertion. But humans had evolved as persistence predators, and right now, she was proving why. The command node's final defense layer activated, flooding the chamber with what the aliens considered toxic atmosphere. Chen took a deep breath of the enriched oxygen and grinned. Thanks for the performance boost, she said, punching through the last barrier. Game over. The arena's systems froze, unable to process what had just happened. The humans had not only reached the command node, they'd done it in under 15 minutes. And they weren't even winded. 14 minutes and 37 seconds, the game's master announced, all 6 eyes blinking rapidly. The previous record was 6 hours and 12 minutes. The silence in the observation deck was absolute. Even the MRXE had stopped wobbling. Instructor Zextal's mandibles worked soundlessly as Chen's team stood at attention, their environmental suits still smoking slightly from the final push. Behind them, the command node's displays showed the impossible statistics: 27 eliminations without a single casualty, total mission success, and complete objective domination. But you didn't follow any of the established protocols, a Floraxian official finally managed. We followed every rule in the book, Chen replied, pulling up the regulations on her datapad. We just didn't follow your assumptions about those rules. The military delegation huddled together, their universal translators struggling with the rapid exchange of alarmed observations. Finally, the High Commander stepped forward. It seems, they said slowly, we have greatly misunderstood the nature of Deathworld adaptation. We saw your physical capabilities as your primary advantage. When really, Rodriguez added, it's our ability to think outside the box. Mainly because on Earth, the box is probably trying to kill you. The announcement went out across the galaxy. Humans had not only won the war games, they'd revolutionized them. Applications from alien military organizations for joint training exercises flooded in. Everyone wanted to learn from the Deathworlders now. As Chen's team departed the arena, Instructor Zextal approached them, his posture notably more respectful. "I must ask," he said, "how did you know all your tactics would work?" Chen smiled. "On Earth, we have a saying, adapt or die. We just got very, very good at adapting."